Hi everyone, I'm Alistair Ben and you're watching Expressive Photography. In this video, I want to show you how to breathe new life into old RAW files. But the good news is it works with new RAW files too. So in this video, let's dive into how to get the absolute most out of your RAW files, both old and new. In just over a month's time, I will have been a landscape photographer for 20 years, and I'm sure, like many of you, I have a catalogue full of old RAW files taken with older cameras, older lenses, and some of the embarrassing processing that we can look back on in terms of what we could do with the tools available back in those days and the skills that we had back in those days. Now, I'm not one to traditionally go back and reprocess images, but what I'm finding now is that I've got so many hidden gems or so many favorite photographs over this last 20 years that I'm trying to find ways to reapproach them and to get the most out of them. In this video, I want to focus on this particular scene. This was taken in September of 2004. This is Vermilion Lake in Banff National Park, and you can barely see it. This is actually my very, very first night photograph, taken with a Canon 20D and a 17-40 f4 lens. And if we have a quick look at the data here, it's a 30-second exposure at f6.3, at 17 millimeters at ISO 100. Now, that EXIF data tells you how little I knew about night photography, and this was literally the very, very first one I tried. Now, obviously, this image is hugely underexposed, and if we look at the next screen, we will see what I could do with that photograph then. This was my best attempt at processing this image, and I remember being terribly proud of this because it spurred me on to take more night photography. This was the beginning of a journey that ultimately led to me publishing my first ebook in 2012, so it took me 8 years, How to Photograph the Landscape at Night. So I learned a lot about what not to do as much as what I learned about what to do. So obviously this was a product of the tools I had available at the time, my limited understanding of the tools, and obviously the limitations of the tools themselves. Now I'm here in Adobe Lightroom Classic on the cloud, so I'm using the latest version of Adobe Lightroom, and what that has brought to us is a far greater palette of tools available to us, including noise reduction or AI noise reduction and all of the other tools that we know exist in Lightroom. And what I wanted to do here was look at, well, what can I do with this file today? So in this next file, this is an enhanced version of the RAW file. So I've increased the exposure and I've taken it through Lightroom's intelligent AI noise reduction engine. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, if I zoom in here, and this will be very, very difficult to see on video, I understand, this isn't the ideal environment, but what I'm seeing are lots of little artifacts, all of the little grains have been sharpened, and it's really not a very attractive look at all. And I don't really consider this to be any improvement on where I was 20 years ago. It's now, this isn't a damnation of Lightroom's intelligent AI noise reduction, but to me, this isn't as good as perhaps you might get with something like Topaz Noise Reduction AI. Now, for many, many years now, I have also been using products from DxO Labs. I first became aware of them because they did all the lens profiling, and this was the big thing they did maybe 20 years ago. When you were going to buy a new lens, you would go to the DxO website and you would look at the charts and the performance data, and that would allow you to make informed choices in terms of sharpness and chromatic aberration. And DxO Labs have a product called PureRAW 4. These things get updated periodically, so we're in the 4th iteration of this particular software. And if I look at the next image, this has been put through the PureRAW 4 interface. And if we just quickly skip between the two versions here, so this is the Lightroom version and this is the PureRAW version. What PureRAW does is it has a huge database of camera bodies and lenses, and in fact what I'll do is let's just go back to the raw file here, and I'm going to go File, Plug in Extras, Process, and Preview and Process in PureRAW 4, and I'll show you the interface here. I'll just enable the preview. Now this doesn't matter if you've increased the exposure in Lightroom, it's not going to show you that. This is dealing with the raw file, so we're seeing that original exposure. But the first thing we can see is the image on the left is uncorrected, the image on the right is corrected. You can see instantly that the distortion is being corrected. So what PureRAW 4 is doing is it's correcting for distortion, it's correcting for chromatic aberration, it's correcting for softness of the lens, it's correcting for vignetting that can get caused by lenses. Now this was, like I said, a Canon 17-40. It was a very good lens back in its day, but you can definitely see that there is a lot of distortion, and on a better exposed file you would see the vignetting reduction and stuff as well. The other thing that PureRAW 4 does is noise reduction, and it does that using a couple of algorithms, the Deep Prime, and then there's one called Deep Prime XD2/XD. There isn't a massive difference between those two noise reductions, and the bottom line is that if I just cancel this and come back to this version, what we do see here is, in comparison to the Lightroom denoising, that the Lightroom version has lots and lots of artifacts and the PureRAW version doesn't. Simple as that. So what this has allowed me to do is to start my processing with a far, far superior file. Now, this is the beauty of shooting in RAW, and I know there's lots of debates about shooting JPEG versus shooting RAW. As far as I'm concerned, as an archival medium, RAW surpasses everything, purely because there is data hidden away in this RAW file that I can recover now using tools that weren't available back in the day. If I go back to my processed version and put this into the development module, you will see that I had hugely clipped shadows. It's very dark, it's very contrasty, and the noise reduction tools available to me then were far, far less. If we go to the PureRAW version here, we can see that I've managed to get rid of the shadow clipping, but I'm still preserving detail in these shadows, and there's a lot of interesting detail in this photograph. So if I just take the crop, this 16:9 crop, which is what I foresee as being the better aspect ratio for this particular scene, I look on this as a great starting point. Now, when we have this huge database of RAW files available to us, we know that the tools are improving all the time. Every year, things are getting better. The software we have at our disposal is getting better. And with things like PureRAW 4 now, we can correct for chromatic aberration, we can correct for lens softness, we can correct for distortion. And every year, new camera profiles and lens combinations are coming to the market. So for my new Fujifilm GFX 100 Mark II and the lenses I use with that, they had new profiles that came out just in the last few months because the GFX 100 II is quite a new camera. So this is an ongoing project from DxO Labs, and I am delighted that I'm delighted to be a global ambassador for DxO Labs, purely because it's allowing me to breathe new life into an awful lot of my historical images that I would like a second chance to go back and actually process them a little bit better than I did the first time. I'm going to finish processing this image myself, and I'll show it to you now. If you're interested in looking at DxO's PureRAW 4 software, there is of course a 30-day free trial. You can download it at the link below and download the software, try it out for a while, see what you think. But I have also got a 20% discount code for those of you who want to purchase it, and that is valid until the end of August. So you've got plenty of time to try out the software and then get a 20% discount on it before the end of the month. I hope you found this little tutorial on how to get the most out of your old RAW files to be useful, and if you're a new viewer to the channel, please consider subscribing. Something like 65% of people who watch this channel aren't actually subscribed to it, so you're really helping us out by giving us an old thumbs up and subscribing. Dive into the comments. Do you use DxO Lab software already, or is there another way that you would tackle bringing life to old RAW files? You let me know, and I look forward to bringing you some more content next week. But for now, I'm Alistair Ben, Expressive Photography. Thank you very much.